Needless to say, Dooku's duel with Anakin Skywalker aboard the Invisible Hand during the Battle of Coruscant did not end well for the Sith Lord. Defeated and shocked at the turn of events, Dooku could ultimately do nothing but stare up at the enraged Jedi above him and hope for some kind of clemency, as Anakin held both his own and Dooku's lightsaber at his throat. Of course, Anakin showed no sympathy to Dooku, and after some persuasion from Palpatine, the public persona of the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious, Anakin murdered Dooku rather than take him prisoner, thereby pushing Anakin further towards the dark side. But it must be asked, when Dooku was on his knees before Anakin, why didn't he tell the Jedi the truth about Palpatine's true identity, in that he was the Sith Lord Darth Sidious who the Jedi were searching for? This seems like a clear missed opportunity for Dooku, if not to attempt to save his life outright, but to at least enact a bit of betrayal of his own. How could it have been that Dooku merely waited out his death at the hands of Anakin, without giving up the identity of Palpatine? In this video expose, I will describe why Dooku didn't tell Anakin Palpatine was Darth Sidious, and explain the importance of Dooku's understanding of what was happening within Anakin, and his realization of his master's true plan and endgame. Although not as important as the reasoning related to Anakin and Darth Sidious, it would be a mistake to discount the way in which the pain and shock of the situation would work to prevent Dooku from telling Anakin that Palpatine was Sidious. It's entirely possible that the shock of what unfolded made revealing Palpatine's Sith identity the last thing on his mind. The entire situation caught Dooku completely by surprise, as he was led to believe by Sidious that during the duel between himself and the two Jedi, Anakin and Obi-Wan, he would kill Obi-Wan, and then Dooku and Sidious would turn Anakin to the dark side. Following Obi-Wan's death and Anakin's turn, Dooku would then have entered into captivity as a prisoner of the Republic, having been captured by Anakin. He would then sit out the rest of the war in comfort. According to this plan, created by Sidious and accepted by Dooku, Dooku could then renounce and disavow his ties to the Separatists, as the true extent of their atrocities against the galaxy came to light. This would allow him to enter into the hierarchy of the emerging empire, with his reputation and integrity fully intact. Dooku had no doubt that this plan would work. He had absolute certainty that Anakin would fall to the dark side following his eventual victory over Obi-Wan. In fact, before the duel, Dooku saw no way in which he could lose to Anakin, and clearly underestimated his power. When Sidious asked him if he was confident that he would be able to defeat Anakin, Dooku dismissed the idea of his defeat, given that Anakin's power was so unstructured and undisciplined. Even immediately prior to the start of the duel, Dooku saw Anakin as pathetic and pitiful, wherein it was an insult to even call him a Jedi at all, and where it would be a personal embarrassment to have to pretend that he'd been captured by him. Therefore, given the extreme change of circumstances and the speed in which it happened, wherein rather than sitting out the rest of the war in comfort as part of the Sith plan to gain control of the galaxy, and where Dooku had both of his hands cut off and was now facing certain death, it's entirely possible that this pain and shock at the situation simply rendered Dooku silent, and unable to begin to think about revealing to Anakin that Palpatine was the Sith Lord Darth Sidious. While this may have played a small role in why Dooku didn't tell Anakin Palpatine was Sidious, more important in my opinion is the fact that, in Anakin, Dooku knew exactly who it was who was looking down at him, and in control of his life after he was defeated in their duel, as Dooku understood the history between the two, and the importance of who Anakin had become. This understanding would have made it obvious to Dooku that attempting to reveal Palpatine as Sidious would have no effect on the potential to save his life. Dooku knew that he'd become the face, representing the Separatist war against the Republic for Anakin, wherein Anakin wanted revenge against Dooku, not just for taking his hand during the first Battle of Geonosis, but for what he did against the Jedi and the entire galaxy. By the time of the Battle of Coruscant, in the waning days of the Clone Wars, defeating Dooku had become personal for Anakin. This was seen when Anakin and Obi-Wan first got on board the Invisible Hand, as Anakin was able to immediately feel the presence of Dooku and wanted to confront him, even forgetting momentarily their mission to rescue the Chancellor. Dooku must have understood that he would not have gained anything in trying to appeal to Anakin's sense of sympathy to save his life, by divulging to the Jedi that Palpatine was Sidious. In fact, Dooku did recognize that even after he had fallen to the dark side as part of their plan, it was very unlikely that Anakin would accept his orders, given his biography and their history, understanding that Anakin would not be obedient to him. Sidious reassured Dooku prior to the duel that it was unnecessary to worry about that, as Anakin would not need to be given orders, merely be left to achieve their goals himself. But more important than the understanding of the history between himself and Anakin, Dooku felt exactly what Anakin had become during their duel on the Invisible Hand, and understood why telling him that Palpatine was Sidious would have made no difference in preventing the ultimate outcome and saving his life. During their duel above Coruscant, Dooku felt a twisting and change in the currents of the Force between himself and Anakin. Whereas Dooku was previously certain that there was no way he would be defeated, he now accepted the terrifying possibility that Anakin could beat him. Dooku understood exactly why it was that Anakin was getting stronger and more powerful, which was his internal fear and gift of fury. When Dooku felt Anakin through the Force, he recognized that Anakin's fear was creating a thermonuclear furnace inside of him that was burning down the barriers put in place by his training as a Jedi. That is, his Jedi restraint. Importantly, Dooku recognized that Anakin was already half a Sith without even knowing it at the time of their duel. But when Anakin was able to discover later in the duel that his fear could also be weaponized and used against the Sith Lord, Dooku felt the nuclear flame inside of Anakin consume him and fully dismantle his Jedi restraint and compassion. As Dooku was eventually defeated by Anakin, he could see the flames in Anakin's eyes that represented his fury as he looked up at him. Further, his knowledge of the Force allowed him to see his own death, and he was able to examine and accept it. Therefore, Dooku knew exactly who and what Anakin was as he was looking up at him following his defeat. Dooku recognized that Anakin was no longer a Jedi guided by compassion and restraint. Rather, Anakin had become, in many ways, akin to a Sith, consumed by passion, rage, and fury. Understanding this, Dooku must have realized that attempting to save himself by revealing to Anakin that Palpatine was Darth Sidious would have achieved nothing. Dooku knew that Anakin had lost all restraint, and having foreseen his own death at his hand, merely waited for the strike to come. But there's another important element that exists, relating to why Dooku didn't tell Anakin Palpatine was a Sith, that goes beyond Dooku and Anakin. This is Dooku's full understanding of his master's true goal and endgame, wherein he would be replaced by Anakin as Sidious's apprentice. Again, while staring up at the victorious Anakin, Dooku not only saw the flames in his eyes, but he realized that he had fallen into Sidious's trap, and that everything that had taken place up until then, including his defeat by Anakin, had proceeded according to his master's plan. Dooku fully recognized that he was never truly Sidious's apprentice, or the heir to the future of the Sith. Rather, he understood that he'd been a tool for Sidious to push Anakin into the role of Sith apprentice, and most importantly, to be killed by Anakin in order to push him further to the dark side. This is crucial to why Dooku didn't reveal to Anakin that Palpatine was Sidious in a desperate attempt to save himself, as he knew that Sidious's plan had been orchestrated and crafted from the beginning to culminate in his death by Anakin. Given how Dooku was in awe of Sidious's planning, as he watched the Battle of Coruscant unfold, and actually admonished Anakin as someone who would never understand the efforts undertaken by Sidious, it's clear that Dooku knew Sidious's plan would unfold as it was supposed to, and he would be the victim of Anakin. This, coupled with the fact that Dooku foresaw his own death through the Force, Dooku must have concluded that any attempt to save himself by revealing Palpatine's true identity would be useless, as his only option was to play his role in the unfolding of Sidious's plan. So there we have it. Why Dooku didn't tell Anakin that Palpatine was Darth Sidious. Given his shock from the complete reversal of circumstances, he felt the full fury and removal of any semblance of Jedi restraint or compassion from Anakin, and he understood that Darth Sidious's plan was crafted to result in his death, a death that Dooku could foresee himself through the Force. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for Jedi restraint.